Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the World Affairs Council special program. This is something that I've been looking forward to a great deal, as have the Young Professionals Committee of the World Affairs Council. It's our panel with local college students who are interested in international affairs. We've had a bunch of programs since we went virtual, but this has got to be one of my favorite ones. Because this is what we do. We inform the community about the impact of international affairs and the impact of the World Affairs Council, and what better way to do it than with those who are students of the international arena. Today we have representatives from each local college, and they will be introduced shortly. We've divided them up because there are 7, and for a first part and a second part. The first part will be moderated by World Affairs Council's Young Professionals Committee member, Wayne Smith, who's with CoStar. And the second part will be Jan Ross Piedad with Texas Public Radio, who will be doing the second panel. Before we get to them, I do want to thank the University of the Incarnate Word for sponsoring this webinar, and they've been doing it for the past 2 months. So we really appreciate UIW's support for our digital programming. We do this because we love international affairs, but we also need support to do this. So if you're interested in membership or opportunities, or the opportunity to donate, please look in the chat room for that links. Samantha is putting that information in there. If you're also interested in the Young Professionals Committee, please message us and we will get you acquainted with the Young Professionals Committee. Thank you to those who were watching on Facebook Live. We appreciate you for tuning in, and for all of those who have joined us also on Zoom. I want to introduce Sarah Allred now, who will introduce Wayne. Sarah is a product of, speaking of local, she's a product of Brandeis High School, and she went to UTSA, go Roadrunners. Feel free to plug your mascots when you're talking, so that's what it's all about, right? And she was a co-founder of the Model UN at UTSA, so kudos to her. She's traveled extensively. She has lived in Venezuela and also Honduras, and I'm sure Ambassador Cregan would appreciate to hear that as well. And she is currently at Valero as a government affairs analyst, and she also chairs the Young Professionals Committee. Without further interruption, I want to introduce you to the one and only Sarah Allred. Take it away.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Armin. That's such a kind introduction, and welcome everyone. First off, big thank you to our college panelists for participating today. We're also so pleased to feature 2 amazing and accomplished members of our Young Professionals Committee, Wayne and Jan, who are going to be moderating the panel discussions. And our committee, just like Armin was saying, we've been so encouraged and excited by the response that this event has received. We're greatly looking forward to hearing from this fantastic lineup of accomplished students from here in the local community who are just returning to school for the fall semester. And wow, what a time to be going back to university. I think we can all agree. As a proud Roadrunner myself, I fondly remember that infectious energy that was always present on the first day back after a long summer. And, you know, given the pandemic, that's simply just not going to be the experience for students going back this semester. So in today's program, we're going to be hearing from some of those students who are living through an historic back to school experience. And our panelists are scholars who are drawn to international studies, who have diverse backgrounds, unique interests, and we can't wait to hear more about them during our conversations today. Just like these students, every member of our Young Professionals Committee has, we certainly have a particular topic or interest that we hold near and dear to our hearts, you know, well after graduating, always and forever, right? But what happens after graduating when you start pursuing professional careers? Personally, I was always interested in intelligence studies and Latin American politics, and I still am. And no matter where we end up professionally, you still carry those college passions with you. So we want to showcase these soon-to-be young professionals themselves and explore the connections that bridge our studies and interests and the pursuit of professional careers. It's important to note that this programming allows us to learn through the experiences of others. And although life has certainly slowed down for most of us because of the pandemic, global politics now more than ever has become such a, it's become so critical for us to be aware of what's going on and how these global issues impact our communities. And so through the conversations that we're going to be having today and future programming, we're growing that understanding of local impact due to these global challenges. And it really helps us grow a more globally minded community here in San Antonio. So we really hope you enjoy this programming. And if you're a young professional or soon to be young professional, maybe you're in university right now and you're thinking ahead, definitely stay in touch, stay engaged with what the Young Professionals Committee is doing, what the San Antonio World Affairs Council is doing, and our future events, because we'd love to hear from you. If you're interested in learning more about our committee, please reach out to us in the chat, because we're hoping that you'll consider joining us. It is my pleasure now to hand things over to Wayne, who's going to share a little bit more about himself. And Wayne, it's all yours. I'll kick it to you now.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Close to afternoon, but thank you again to all the panelists who are here to participate with us today. I'm really excited to hear from everyone, and I think all of our audiences. Thank you for our university partners, and also a special thank you to the World Affairs Council. This is a great, like Sarah kind of touched on, times are changing. This is kind of the new normal, and we're really, really happy that this was able to come together. We have so many people with so many unique backgrounds at all these different universities, but everything has kind of come together in a perfect scenario. So I just want to first go over kind of how this is going to function, just so everyone's kind of on the up and up. And then I'm going to hand it off to the panelists to do a little introduction of themselves. So I'm just this is gonna be more of a conversation. There's a few questions that I'm gonna ask, and I'm sure as we progress through those questions, the audience is gonna have questions. Please feel free to submit any questions you have, and I will filter those to the panelists specifically, or just at large, so we can have a fruitful discussion. So a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Los Angeles. I've been in San Antonio for 20 years now. My wife and I are pretty involved in international affairs. My wife is originally from Kazakhstan, so we travel quite a bit. I've been pretty involved in various political campaigns across San Antonio and Texas. And yeah, so I love everything international, especially the food. So yeah, with that, I just want to go through who's going to be on the panelist for this first session. First, we have Taylor Helmkamp. Taylor, if you could kind of wave just so everyone kind of knows who you are. She's joining us from UTSA. Teddy, he's joining us from St. Mary's. If you just give us a little wave there. Merve, she's from Our Lady of the Lake. And then Micah from San Antonio College. There we are. Yeah. So in that order, Taylor, I'm going to let you take it off and then kind of just do a little 1 to 2 minute introduction about yourself. Tell us about yourself. Maybe, you know, everyone has a different background, but maybe if you guys could mention, you know, what's your relation to the international community, whether you're studying international affairs or you are an international student, or it's an interest of yours. Just, yeah, highlight that for us.
Awesome. Thanks, Wayne. Hey, y'all. My name is Taylor Helmkamp. I'm a senior studying global affairs, Russian, and linguistics at the University of Texas at San Antonio. So go runners. There's a couple other runners on the panel today. But I kind of got into the field of international relations and global affairs kind of haphazardly. I actually wanted to be a nuclear engineer in high school. And I also happened to play volleyball. And my junior year, I had coaches who were half Serbian, half Croatian. And prior to that experience, I didn't even know Eastern Europe existed. Like, obviously it was there, but it didn't exist in my mind. And after learning about like their culture and just the political situation during the fall of Yugoslavia, that really opened my eyes to the region. And then from that point on, I decided to pursue like my analytical mind. I decided to apply it to international affairs rather than engineering. And since then, I study Russian. I dove into the Slavic world, and it's more relevant than ever. So that's kind of how I got involved, but I'm really happy that I made that decision.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. Teddy, I'll let you take it away.
Hi, everybody. Like Wayne said, I'm Teddy Villasenor. I'm an active duty major in the United States Army, and I'm a foreign area officer. Basically, I'm a political military engagement specialist for Western Hemisphere affairs. I work closely with the Department of State and within embassies. I'm currently in the training pipeline, so we all have to have a graduate degree in international relations. What really drew me to international relations is this truism that China is going to eclipse the United States. I've heard that since my days as an undergrad at West Point, and I really wanted to see what are Russia, China, and the United States doing? How are they maneuvering around one another? And what can be done to maintain U.S. hegemony, economic prowess, and military supremacy? So that's what got me into international relations.
Thank you. Merve, I'll let you go next.
Hello, everyone. This is Merve Göllü. I'm an MBA student at Our Lady of the Lake University. I'm a board member at Raindrop Foundation and also leader at Interfaith Action Network. I'm an international student here at the United States, and I would like to talk about political climate in Turkey. I'm from Turkey. I lived in Russia, Tatarstan for a little while in my life. So I was always really interested in international relations because I'm an international student. Everyone asks questions about Turkey to me, so that's my life, I think. As I said before, I was born and raised in Turkey, so I'm gonna talk about Turkey. So you can ask questions. I'll answer as far as I know. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Micah?
Hey everyone, my name's Micah. I went to San Antonio College and finished an associate's there, and I'll probably be going to either plumbing or auto mechanic school in the future. My experience with international relations is I went on a study abroad trip last summer to Ireland and Scotland, and that was partly to kind of reconnect with my heritage, my Irish ancestry, and then it was also just to see another culture and see how they do life. So.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so kind of branching off of that that initial intro from everyone, I think something that came to mind for me that I would be interested to hear about, and I think everyone else would, whether you're listening to this and you've traveled internationally or you haven't, I think there's always unique experiences that we encounter when we go to visit new countries or encounter someone here that is from another country. So if maybe you guys could briefly talk about you know, what the first time you traveled international, whether it was here to the States or somewhere else, what was your biggest takeaway? Like, what was that initial time when you traveled to something that's so different than you culturally, what you were raised with? I think there's always a little bit of a shock associated, and then quickly an adoption of, you know, how things are in that country. So all of you have very different countries you visited, and I think that's really interesting. So talk a little bit more about that. Just anyone feel free to chime in, and we'll just go around in a circle and kind of talk about, yeah, that first experience for you.
So I would say, you know, as a kid, I went to Mexico very frequently to visit family. I was born in Mexico, raised in the United States. But I would say my first true international experience was a senior in high school. I did my senior year in Germany at a German gymnasium as part of a State Department scholarship. And I got thrown into a German host family. I didn't speak the language well. And just their mannerisms were completely different. You don't hug with people you don't know. And coming from San Diego and El Paso, Texas, I hugged everybody. So it was those soft skills, those interpersonal skills that at first it was culture shock, but then it really refined me. I learned not to speak over someone at the dinner table. They really don't bless each other after they sneeze, and everyone asks if they may stand before they leave the table. So it really made me cognizant of, when I go into a forum, what are the faux pas, what are the do's and don'ts, and what are small things that can ingratiate myself with other people to gain rapport. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you.
I had a very similar experience to Teddy. So I was born and raised McAllen, Texas, so right on the border next to Reynosa. And I really grew up in this kind of blended community of Hispanic people and like American culture and Mexican culture. So I would say my first true international experience was not this past summer, but the summer prior. I studied in Moscow, Russia. And I was there for a linguistic program to try to gain more fluency in the language. And even though I had taken courses about Russian culture and kind of the do's and don'ts that Teddy was mentioning, you can really only prepare so much, because there are these obvious big things like don't like talk to people on the subway or else you're going to be ostracized. But there's also these subtle little things like averting eye contact in certain situations, and like when you can even shake someone's hand, when can you kiss them on the cheek, depending on your social level of comfort with them. So there's a lot of things that are very minute and subtle, and it really opens your eyes to become more observant in American context. Because following that, the following spring, I actually interned with the State Department. And I think that my experience in Russia and having to navigate the new cultural environment helped me adjust very, very rapidly in the formalized bureaucratic environment, because suddenly I don't need to be told what's good and what's bad. You can sit down and just kind of feel the room and start to have an insight that maybe someone who hadn't had that experience would have.
Thank you very much.
I think I would like to share a very similar experience too. I was, I think, 21 years old when I moved to Wisconsin. My husband was a PhD student there. So we got married in Turkey and then came to United States. At the airport, everyone, it was in Chicago. And so at the airport, everyone waved at me. They said how beautiful my scarf is. They said hello, which was real weird to me, because no one, in Turkey, if you don't know someone, you don't say hello. And then I went to the grocery store and they didn't pass next to me. They just said, "Excuse me." I said, okay, I did completely wrong here. I think I'm doing wrong. Why they keep telling me, excuse me? Because in Turkey, they can knock you and they can just, it's a crowded country, so they can walk over each other and no one says, excuse me. So, and then it was a challenging. And another experience we had, before coming to United States, there was people from Madison, Wisconsin, and they came to travel in Istanbul, and we had a dinner with them. So I know they're Americans, but I didn't know anything about them. They know my husband, and we just chat during dinner. It was a great experience for me. And then everyone went to hotel, and my husband said, maybe we should look for, Jewish people they eat kosher and stuff, and Muslims eat halal and stuff. So he said, maybe we should find a kosher restaurant. Do they have? And I said, why are you asking this? Because they're Jewish. And I was completely shocked because I've never talked with a Jewish person. If you're Turkish, here's the package. You hate Greeks, you hate Israel. And I was shocked. And I said, oh, they're really good people. He said, yeah. That was our first argument about during our marriage. But I realized you just need to get together with them. You just need to know one another. You just need to have a talk as a friend. Then everything gets suited out. Everything gets easier with in this case. So it was. They're my best friends right now. They come and visit us. It's. Yeah, that was a different experience for me. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Micah?
I think my biggest shock was honestly just remembering to take care of my health. When I was abroad, it was so easy to just, want to be outside all the time and go sites, and I'd stay up late doing my homework, and I'd neglect my sleep, and neglect other areas of my health. So yeah.
It was a little hard. I think you cut out there a little bit on the end, but I think what I got from that was you were saying just remembering self-care, right? Remembering to kind of take care of yourself in the midst of being in another place. Yeah, I know that can be hard when you're focused on so many extraneous things that are around you that are new, and so some of the things you take for granted sometimes slip to the back of your mind. I appreciate everyone's point of view on that. I think what I'm taking from this really is kind of like what you were talking about, Merve. There's more that draws us together than divides us, even on an international scale. I think we hear that phrase spouted by politicians pretty often in the United States, but I think the same applies internationally. And obviously with the mission of the World Affairs Council being to bring the world to San Antonio and San Antonio to the world, all of you guys are perfect examples of many different ways of doing that. Merve, I do want to kind of branch off into that, kind of drill down a little bit. I would love to hear about your family's experience, whatever you feel comfortable sharing in Turkey and the democracy there. As we experience polarization here, I think it's a very relevant topic.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to talk about my family because in 2016, there was a coup attempt in Turkey. And my family had to move here because of that. They were volunteering they were part of the organization called Hizmet Movement. Maybe you're not heard of it. It means public service, and it's a civic society that works on education and dialogue with different interfaith and different cultures. And so my parents were mostly working on education. For example, some girls in the east part of the Turkey, they cannot go to college. So my people were kind of building dormitory for the girls. So they arranged scholarship opportunities for the girls. They go to the villages and they say, go get in that college. There's a college prep exam. Go to that college prep exam and get a good grade. Then go to the college. Then your life is going to change. But they cannot, because of financial problems, they cannot go to college. And those, my parents were helping building a dormitory. They were helping those girls in the dormitory so they can go to college without thinking about financial problems and stuff. So my family is really from really small town. I think it's as big as Bernie. Everyone knows each other. Everyone knows who you are, who's your family. So everyone knows they are related to Hizmet movement. After the coup attempt, Erdogan said that Hizmet movement did the coup attempt. So my parents, friends, they were all they were sent to detention center. So I talked my parents and I said, you gotta come here. They had 10-year visa to United States. So I said, you gotta come here. It's getting back. I mean, just for a travel or something, just for a few months, just come here. They said it's not gonna go bad. I mean, it's okay. And then neighbors attacked their home, my father's shop, and I said, okay, you gotta come here. And in 2 hours, they packed and they came here, and they went to Istanbul, and I bought their ticket. They came here, and then next day, there was a case against them because, so Erdogan said Hizmet movement is a terrorist organization and they were part of it. They publicly donated money to that organization, so they are terrorists also. My mother-in-law and father-in-law went to Germany for that reason. My brother was in China, at the time he was living in China, and he had to come here as well. So I'm telling this story because it's a different part of the world. It's a different country. But still, if something happens in that small country, in that small town, it affects us in United States. I have a lot of friends who have been jailed, who was raped, and they had to. Oh, it's hard to talk about those issues. In the detention center, they just show police officers are just there's physical abuse. Of course, they cannot talk when they're in Turkey. They just go. People usually go to the Greece and then Europe or in United States. They run away, they swim across the Greece, and then they are publicly, they're able to speak after that. So it affects whole Europe and also United States. And unfortunately, there's no rule of law right now in Turkey. And it was even before, especially people are asking me, even before Erdogan, how was the climate, how was the political life in Turkey? So I went to college at that time, and I had to take off my hijab in order to go to the college. And my family didn't want me to wear a hijab because that's the idea at the time. If seculars were so oppressive to do conservative Muslims. So before I go to the college, I see a lot of women around me. They think if they go to the college, that means taking off your hijab, or you're not going to wear your hijab at all. Then you're able to work, but then you're not the practical Muslim. Many women decided not to go to the college, not to get an education, and right after high school, they decided to get married, which is an option, but girls didn't want that option. I mean, they wanted to go to college with their hijab on. So at that time, people didn't able to. I'm talking about before Erdogan. At that time,
Merve, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I want to draw the parallel. I love the story. I'm like really entrenched in it, but I just want to make sure we have time to answer all the questions. But I really appreciate that, and I think it draws a very interesting point. Like you mentioned, like this is another country. This is, you know, happening in the world as we're sitting here dealing with our own political situation or whatever's happening. Things like this are happening sometimes worse in other parts of the world. So events like this, I think kind of help shed light on things that are maybe out of the news cycle, like what's going on with Erdogan. You know, every now and then you'll hear something about Turkey or some, you know, human rights violation that happens. But for the most part, as soon as it's out of that 72-hour news cycle, you know, it's people like you who I think help, you know, keep that in the forefront, because it is a important topic. I do want to ask you guys a group question, and you guys can feel free to just answer how you would like. I would like to know what your one piece, and this is going to be different for everyone, your one piece of advice or wisdom would be to someone who is maybe unfamiliar with being involved in international affairs, like who wants to take the next step and, you know, whether going the military route and becoming involved in politics like that, like Teddy is, or, you know, study abroad, or, you know, traveling and maybe living in another country, like Merve has done and coming here. So what would be to either your fellow college students, you know, who are trying to break into that, what would be your biggest piece of advice or lesson learned even?
Sure, I would say Google. So pick what interests you in life, whether it's art, religion, culture, politics, military. So type in military plus symbol, and then whatever culture interests you. So it could be military plus Germany, and then Google, and then hit the news tab. And that's how you can, you know, break into it and just start reading the news, see current events, and then you can just type in history, Google, whatever you just read. Everything is globalized now. So I thought that I had to go back east to study, to have this cosmopolitan introduction into international affairs, and I was going to go to the bird school, and my wife was like, stop, we're going to stay in Texas where my family is, we need to be stabilized. So, you know, the Google machine, I was like, international relations, Texas, and then I found St. Mary's program, and then sure enough, you know, Ambassador Cragen and Dr. Donoso showed up, and I was like, hey, I can learn from an Ecuadorian defense official, and I can learn from a former ambassador. And so you literally have the power at your fingertips right now with your phone and your computer to type in what's interesting to you, where, and you'll break in.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Taylor?
To fellow college students who may not even know that international affairs is a viable option, or that path even exists, like myself, at that time, at least, until I was introduced, I say that if you're planning on going to university and you're just studying something because you feel like it's what makes sense, but you're not passionate about it, then keep seeking. Because I almost made the mistake of going into engineering because I thought it just made sense. I'm an analytical person, very logical, it just made sense. But then I fell into global affairs in Russian, and I fell in love with studying the geopolitical region. Energy policy, for instance, is what I'm working on right now between the EU and Russia. So it's just a matter of seeking, and you can utilize the Google machine, as Teddy said, but you can also utilize your local resources, like the World Affairs Council. It's really easy to find them if you type in International Affairs San Antonio and send them an email. If you're not in university, and if you are, then you have faculty members in the proper departments. And like at UTSA, we're very fortunate that two of my mentors, one is from Germany and one is from Bulgaria. So both are very, very relevant nations, especially now for the region that I study. So just really plug in, not only in the Google machine, but also that network of resources that are at your fingertips to really find your passion and hone it in.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. Yeah, that's very important. I mean, I think it's saying that, you know, regardless of everyone who's listening in or people who are going to hear about this afterwards, you know, it doesn't necessarily take you traveling to another country or doing a study abroad or living somewhere else to be internationally minded. And that just keeping aware of things and being that kind of global citizen, which everyone here on this panel is, that in itself opens you up and keeps you kind of in the know, and also builds, like what Mary was talking about. You don't know until you don't know a specific people group, and then you get to know them, and it, you know, breaks down those barriers, and that all those things together create a better world. So it's exciting to see, you know, younger people like you guys going out and doing that. Because I know I didn't travel internationally for the first time until I was in my early 20s, and I went to the Middle East, and so that was a huge culture shock for me, being, you know, being from the States. So anyways, I'll go back. Micah, do you want to go ahead and answer that?
Yeah, I would just say to read up on kind of like Teddy was saying, like the news, but also like the history and culture, and, you know, listening to their music. The more you engage with that culture now via reading and the internet, you'll be able to better enjoy it once you're actually there.
Yeah, thank you. And Merve, I know you have a different perspective because you've come over this way, but what would be your biggest piece of advice or biggest lesson learned?
Just talk to people and find someone who's not from your town, who doesn't talk in your language, or just talk to people. That would be my advice.
Yeah.
Wayne, I'd like to add one thing. International relations is a great way to do a change of pace in life, especially at the graduate level. I look at my classroom at St. Mary's, and I have a former Algerian math teacher. I have a former Army nurse. So my classmates, quite a few of them, yes, they're in their early 20s. They just finished their undergrad, but they don't know what to do with it. They know they want to leave the United States. They want to see something different. So, you know, in my case, the Army assigned me to be a foreign area officer. And so in all of our cases, actually, our apertures became much wider. And so international relations will open you to, hey, I have a degree in accounting, but I don't necessarily want to work at UBS off the 281. Maybe I can go work for UBS in Zurich, or I can go work for an NGO in, you know, Peru, or I can go to Médecins Sans Frontières, something like that. Or I speak French, or I speak Portuguese because that's what my maman taught me. So you can actually apply your skills. Did you do a pre-dental program? You don't want to be a dentist. Maybe you can go into pharmaceutical sales abroad.
Yeah, very, very good point. And then I'm gonna wrap us up with a kind of a random bonus question that I thought of while we were talking about this. I think everyone is maybe a little, especially this group of people, maybe a little disappointed with the lack of travel we've had due to COVID-19. And, you know, things are changing, and we are hopefully going to see the light at the end of the tunnel here soon. But once all this is over, and just so you guys can answer as briefly or as long as you want with why, what country would you most desire to travel to, and yeah, why? Don't everyone go at once. It's okay. I can start with mine. I would really love to go to Ireland. Micah, I heard you talk about that, and it's on my bucket list. So that's probably the first place after all this goes over and I can feel safe getting on a plane. But yeah, Taylor, what about you?
That's hard. I have a long, long list. I guess next would probably be Taiwan, because I am fascinated in like the cross-strait relations, and also China is obviously a key player right now. So yeah, I think Taiwan would be the next like big cultural leap for me.
Nice.
I would say Brazil.
Oh, sorry, Tim.
Well, I would say Brazil. Brazil is a sleeping giant, especially since I'm involved in the world of diplomacy. They can't be ignored anymore, and everyone right now is trying to get a piece of the Brazilian pie. And who doesn't want to see the beaches, Ipanema, Florianopolis, and who wants to see the Amazon? I do.
Good reasons. Yeah, Micah.
I think I'd go with Russia. There's I've heard of some like strife between them and the U.S. And I think I'd like to go there just to see their side of it. But also they have like a really beautiful culture and architecture. I've seen some of the pictures of Moscow, and it's just wonderful. And I love their music. So yeah, Russia.
Awesome. And Merve, we'll finish up with you.
I would love to go to India. Different religions, very different culture, very large countries. I would love to go to India.
Yeah, that's also on my list. Man, a little warm, just like Texas. Well, guys, thank you so much for all being here and answering these questions and just taking the time out of your day to talk. I think it was a huge benefit to all those who listened. I would encourage anyone who's in the audience listening who wants to connect more with any of the panelists. I think they all have an interest in becoming connected to those who are of same mind. So with that, I will say thank you very much. And I'm going to hand it off to Jan Ross-Piedad, who is with TPR, and she's going to be conducting the second portion of our panelist interview. So thank you guys, and Jan, you're on.
Hey, thank you guys so much, and thank you, Wayne. That was great. I kind of want to answer your question as well. So I might save that for the end if we have time, because that's a great one. I'm Jan Ross. I'm a news operations producer for Texas Public Radio, which means I do a lot for building up our newsroom, collaborations on the state and national level. I am pretty much born and raised, I'm not born and raised, I was born in the Philippines, but I was pretty much raised in San Antonio. I went to school at the International School of the Americas at Lee. So that's a public magnet program that focused on kind of Socratic thinking and kind of cultural learning. So we each had a field trip every year. We had a lot of opportunities to just kind of explore what we wanted. And I knew from very early on that international affairs was something I was interested in. By the time I got to college at the University of Texas at Austin, I chose to go with a journalism degree. And spent all my other efforts outside of that, outside of working, into international affairs. So I did Model UN, which was a continuation of my work at ISA, and then eventually sat on the board for the United Nations Association of the United States of America. So that's better known as UNA USA. For a couple of years, starting as a student liaison, eventually becoming secretary, and eventually moving into the possibility of doing internships with the UN and other international organizations. But I stuck with journalism. So I'm really glad to have this outlet for all my other interests. And I'm very glad to have found a home with the Young Professionals Committee and the World Affairs Council for the last 3 or 4 years. So excited to have our other panelists with us this morning. Let's go ahead and have them introduce themselves. John Suck with Texas A&M San Antonio. Do you want to go first?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm John Sook. I am a senior at Texas A&M University, San Antonio. I'll be graduating this fall with the hopes of becoming a middle school teacher for history. I really want to be that first teacher that introduces students to the humanities, which traditionally happens in 7th grade in most states, including Texas, where you both have an English literature class and also you transfer from the social studies to an actual history. And that's because I think critical thinking is the most important skill going forward with things becoming more and more automated. The one thing a machine can't do is think critically. I'm a non-traditional student. I moved to San Antonio 20 years ago from Iowa, where I got a programming degree. I met my wife, who is a native San Antonio, so I do claim to be part of San Antonio by rights of marriage. and worked in IT for 17 years, and then decided to finish my history degree, which I started many, many moons ago. And then came to A&M San Antonio, which I love, very small classes, very new school, and then got involved in Model United Nations, thanks to Professor Kupcho, who just walked in the office with me and is giving me the raise the roof. So we'll end it there and we'll pass it on to the next panelist.
Paula, do you want to go?
Of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Paula Cáceres, and I'm originally from Monterrey, Mexico. And I moved here to San Antonio 2 years ago to pursue a degree in international business at the University of the Incarnate Word. Go Cardinals. And thank you again for supporting this event. So a little background on me. I have always been interested in the international scene since, like, I believe in middle school we had a Model UN club, so I started getting some exposure there. Also in middle school I started learning the third language of German, which then helped me to do a study abroad program during my high school in Hamburg, Germany. And I'm glad to share that I'll be returning to Hamburg, Germany this coming year to do yet again another study abroad program, and then I'll return to UW and be a senior for the year of fall 2021. So I'm excited about that. And also I have worked close with the study abroad office there at UIW and with the international office as well by welcoming students from all around the world to our campus and encouraging our students here from San Antonio to travel the world and see the world with different eyes. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Ben?
Yeah, so hi, my name's Ben Falcon. I'm a junior at Trinity University. I'm actually from Corpus Christi, but I like to consider San Antonio a second home. I've been living there for about 2-3 years now because of college. So I guess, like, to start off, I want to say personally I'm a dog owner, so if you hear barking, it's my dogs. But I first got introduced to international politics and international relations and international affairs primarily because I was always politically active. I remember volunteering for my first local campaign as a 4-year-old with my mother and my father. Afterwards, I would pay attention to global politics because if there wasn't an election going on here, there certainly was something happening elsewhere. And so I started studying it, became active in my high school's Model United Nations competition, and started to just spread my wings from there. And then extended my time at Trinity to where I am now studying political science and history with a minor in Chinese. And my intention is to go on into graduate school and pursue a PhD in international relations.
That's awesome. I guess there's this common theme that's happening between the three of us where we did the kind of experiential learning example of Model UN, which is so powerful because you kind of get into, for those who are not familiar with it, you kind of have to get into the psyche and the interests and all the research that goes with being a whole nother country, sometimes focusing on a specific committee or something like that. So that was our early exposure in a way. What would you say to someone who is interested in global affairs or learning more about other cultures but don't know where to start?
Oh, I absolutely agree with the Model United Nations. As I'm a Socratic learner, so anything experiential is right in my wheelhouse. And I have to give kudos to the May Center at A&M San Antonio for sponsoring our Model United Nations Club since we're only 2 years old, so we're very new and we're learning every day and every week. We're just out of diapers, as I like to say, since we're 2 years old, and we're walking and talking. And also give kudos to Dr. Blanton, who is the head of the May Center. Also, like you said, you get once in a lifetime opportunities through Model United Nations. We went to a national convention in Washington, D.C. and got to meet with the Cuban delegation, the third ambassador from there, and they have an opportunity to meet with somebody from that diverse of a background and just have a discussion like we're having right now experientially is I mean, that's to me, something like you would do it if you went to Harvard or something like that. Not A&M San Antonio, not to knock A&M San Antonio, obviously. My advice for somebody starting out is just get involved. I've taken adult learning class in Russian, and you meet different people there. Obviously, the instructor there was from Russia, so there was an opportunity there. Read the international news, like on Reuters.com and things of that nature. But just basically, don't be afraid to make mistakes, because when you're first starting out, you're going to have some prejudices and don't know. But obviously, as you learn and experience things, that's going to replace those prejudices. And just don't be afraid to make mistakes.
That's amazing. And John, you also would like to, after graduating, you'd want to be a teacher, right? And kind of guide folks through this process of learning history and
Sure.
critical
Yeah,
thinking.
critical
Right?
thinking is the key and the cornerstone, I think, to all other fields of study. So to set that cornerstone for our youth, so going forward, they can be successful in their future studies and in the business world and in life.
Right. Ben or Paula, you want to go next?
I would just like to add to what John said, that of course at first it'll be kind of hard because you have some prejudices that you didn't even know existed, and by informing yourself you'll start removing them. And since I was exposed to the international scene at a young age, I was like probably 10 when I joined the Model UN. I remember the first country I had to get into and like investigate, I believe, was Saudi Arabia. And it was just mind-blowing, all the information that I have found. And it's also pretty easy to find a lot of information in this country by like just sitting in front of your laptop or your cell phone. We have the advantage that everything is connected right now. And with the situation in the world right now, sadly, we cannot travel much. So I would just say go ahead and start looking in the internet. There's a lot of information. And also, I would just tell you, be cautious with what you read and what you believe, because there's also, since there's so much information, there's some information that's helpful for you and it's actually proven and true. And then there's just false information or fake news that we've seen a lot of those recently. So I would really just say go ahead and dig in, but also develop the critical thinking John was mentioning.
Yeah, and if I may, I think far too often we tend to think that the United States is some kind of a separated part of the international system. And anytime we want to think about like our first exposure to the international system, we always think we have to go and study abroad or do something outside of the US. But we as a country are uniquely positioned to have a wide diversity in every one of our communities. So we are all welcome to participate in local communities and their activities. I personally, during my time in high school, went through a spiritual journey, and I personally took the initiative and went and talked to the local Muslim community and engaged with the local mosque and the Jewish community and the Hindu community, as well as other cultures like the Greek Orthodox. As a result, I learned a lot about those different cultures, and I learned a lot about the geopolitics from the countries of origin for those various cultures. So little things like that. Of course, obviously, since we are in the middle of a pandemic, you can't necessarily physically go out there, at which point I think the best thing you can do is do what Paula said, that you got to utilize the technology that exists. The internet is a wonderful thing. Of course, it has been used for not necessarily the best things at times, but you can use it for good. There's plenty of language learning apps like Duolingo out there and Rosetta Stone too, as well as exposing yourself to different cultures and through music and film is also something great. I love K-dramas, I love K-pop, I listen to French rap and German rap, and even Turkish pop. So it is very wide. We are in a globalized society, so I think if you want to get involved and engaged with the international system, utilize that to your benefit.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I'm also on Duolingo, and I didn't realize how competitive you can get about it until recently, and I started paying attention to that. So I wish I never paid attention to that, because they do a really good job of gamification. And I also recommend Babbel because that's more conversational. There's something that Sarah said really early on that I know our young professionals group really wants to hone in on, which is, you know, global kind of issues, local impact, right? So you all kind of talked a little bit about the things that influence you and the things that interest you. Are there organizations or are there resources at your own university that have helped you throughout your kind of international relations journey that you want to talk about? This is also a chance for you guys to brag and talk about the research that you do, Ben, or the experience that you've had at Study Abroad, working with the Study Abroad office, Paula. Just tell us about kind of what's helped you along the way, maybe tips and tricks, or just organizations you want to highlight overall.
So first off, by working with the Study Abroad office, I learned that we have a lot of partner schools all around the world, and by looking into their programs, and I kind of needed to dig into the program so I could sell it to our students, but it was just pretty interesting to see how their courses are. I had, like, mostly in Asia, they have a different arrangement for their classes, and it was just interesting since getting into their website, seeing how everything is organized differently. So I don't know, it's just, you learn every day. So I would just say, I don't know, it was an amazing experience, even though it was kind of short, because I worked with UIW for 3 months and this whole pandemic started. So sadly I got cut off, but I don't regret a single minute of it. And also UIW has so much variety of students, like international students at campus, that have actually become, like, a couple of my best friends are from Saudi Arabia, also from Korea. It's just amazing getting to know people from around the world in, like, a small town like San Antonio. I wouldn't call it small, but I don't know. It's just, yeah. I don't know, Ben, you want to add something?
Yeah, I'll just say I'm a little biased because my advisor is this director of the Center for International Engagement at Trinity University, and I know the work that he does and his coworkers in their office do with the study abroad programs we offer and the cultural events they organize on campus. It's wonderful. There's a wider variety of opportunities that are available to students at Trinity. There's not a single continent on this earth that there isn't a study abroad program that the university does. And we have semester programs, we have year-long programs, and we have programs to where you take a course on campus and do 2-3 weeks at a certain country that you spend that semester studying. So I actually was supposed to experience my first study abroad experience ever this past spring. I was taking international criminal justice. We were going to go to The Hague, do an internship there, and spend time in the Netherlands, and go to Bosnia, Herzegovina, and learn in real time and interact with survivors of the Bosnian genocide and stuff like that. That would have been an amazing experience. Unfortunately, it all kind of fell apart due to the pandemic. But even beyond study abroad, Trinity is a campus that has a diverse student population. I've utilized my bilingualism, and I've been able to practice my Spanish with people, as well as practice my Mandarin with a large Chinese population on campus. I also, for one, got to participate as a volunteer with the Tiger Break system at the university, which is an alternative spring break program to where students go and do a service trip. And so last spring, not this past spring, but the spring before, I went to El Paso, where I volunteered with refugee shelters and did migrant intake. So I got to interact and be the first introduction to new refugees coming into the country through Latin America, and right after they were released by DHS. And so I got to practice my Spanish and a little bit of Portuguese, and it was very fascinating. That experience gave me a human face to the issue of immigration and migrant issues, which is something that I think studying in a classroom, you don't get to appreciate as much the impact that our government's policies have on real human lives. And so I took that experience and then segued into my research project this summer, but I don't want to monopolize the time. So.
Oh no, you're good. We love hearing about it. But John, do you have any?
Yeah, just real quick. The best thing about A&M San Antonio is it's new, and it's a small school experience at a state school tuition. So you get plugged in immediately. You don't have to fight your way up. Being a founding member of the UN Club, that's a once in a lifetime experience. I didn't have to wait my turn. It was a baptism of fire, right? And then again, just a shout out to the May Center and Dr. Blanton. We had an externship last year on International Peace Day to Austin, where we met with members of the UN that were assigned to Austin, some of your associates that we spoke about last night when we were prepping, and also visiting the Irish consulate, which again, they have an experience of having, maybe 10 students to be able to speak to somebody from their consulate about Ireland, especially with Brexit going on and how Brexit was affecting the two Irelands. They had a one Ireland solution, but Brexit kind of put that into jeopardy, was immensely beneficial. And again, just an amazing experience. And I just wanted to add too, obviously schools give you these opportunities, but really you have to go out of your way not to get involved in international relations. I think from befriending a foreign exchange student from Stuttgart, Germany, when I was in high school, from working in IT and having coworkers and friends from Tamil Nadu and Kerala and India, it's a global world. The world's getting smaller. So you're going to get involved in international relations, whether you want to or not. It's just whether you're going to do it proactively or reactively. And so why not do it proactively so you can get the most out of the experience.
Wow, that just so resonated with me. The fact of doing it proactively instead of reactively, kind of embracing it instead of maybe having it be something that is a little bit threatening, right?
Sure, outside our comfort zone.
Exactly, right. I think that's also something that happens in San Antonio. We're just such a big group of people, and it's a large, I call it a small town that is actually quite large,
Absolutely.
I also saw this common theme even with the last panel about current affairs, and obviously folks like us or folks who are watching this right now care enough to kind of want to be informed. I'm kind of curious about how you guys get your news and information, and how you process that. What do you look for? Ben, I don't know if you want to start. I think you and I were both kind of columnists, and you write for the Trinitonian, and I have that background as well. So I'd love to hear what you have to say first, and then we'll go around.
Yeah, so I think before you want to embark on your journey of wanting to learn more about what is going on and being said in the international arena, you kind of want to answer a simple question. What is it that you want to get out of your media that you're going to want to consume? Do you want to simply get the facts-based status of things? You want the cut and dry truth? Or do you want to get a wider variety of opinions so that you can kind of develop an analysis of everything? Like everyday people should always strive to want the truth, but for people in certain positions elsewhere or want to challenge themselves, it's good to get a wide variety of opinions. So me personally, I primarily focus on print journalism because I think print journalism is one of the most reliable forms of media in terms of journalistic integrity and independence. But I also focus on other outlets as well. And typically I try and get a variety of opinions across the political spectrum so I can get a good consensus of what is actually happening in the world. I also personally like to choose one or two journals and or newspapers or media outlets in other countries to be my introductory source. So say if I wanted to figure out what's going on with Emmanuel Macron and his recent government reshuffle or something, then I'd probably turn on France 24 or something, or read La Croix. Or if I wanted to watched something about Theresa May or the Brexit situation at that time when that was happening, I would have focused primarily on The Guardian or BBC, The Economist, The Telegraph, and what have you. And you got to kind of shop around and figure out who is presenting information in a way that's to you trustworthy and makes sense to you and is also detailed. But yeah, that's for me personally.
That's great.
Yeah, if I may, I would like to add on to that. So first off, I completely agree with Benjamin by saying that it's kind of a trial and error, the source you want to get your information from, because I have looked into a couple specific journals or specific news outlets that I no longer use, since first off, it could be kind of complicated to understand if you're not familiar with their type of language, because they can use I don't know, but it was just not really comfortable for me. So it's just a matter of trial and error. Like if you don't like this outlet of media or a certain journalist, you can just start browsing around and find the one that interests you and then again is trustworthy for you, as Ben mentioned. And also, as I had mentioned before, there's a lot of information out there. So me personally, I limit myself 1 or 2 hours a day for looking at the news. First, I look internationally, then I look local news, and then I just shut everything off because it can get overwhelming since there's a lot of good out there, but there's a lot of bad news at the same time. And you don't want to get your head full of all the bad stuff. So
sure.
I really recommend a healthy limit of 1 or 2 hours per day of looking at the news. So yeah, that's what I do.
That's amazing. And I think, you know, this idea of like a media diet or kind of giving it a specific place in your day, so you are engaged with whatever you're reading or whatever you're scrolling past. I think that makes so much sense. I think I, as a news person, have to remind myself to look, even though it's kind of surrounds my day. But I think that's, you know, for right now, it's really important for us to kind of prioritize the information that we receive and how we process that. John, do you have anything to add?
I just wanted to double down on Benjamin's shout out and admiration for the print media. I'm the son of a newspaperman. My father worked for the Des Moines Register for 30 years. So I have a very idealized view of the media and newspapers as the fourth estate, right? It's almost its own branch of government. I personally use Google News, which you can tune. You can say, I don't want to get anything from this source. For example, RT.com started showing up, which has ties to the Russian state-run media. And so obviously there's going to be a little bias there. And so you can just tune it and maybe clip off some of the far right and far left, even local news. Reuters.com, I think, for international and world news is amazing. Also, on TV, avoid CNN and Fox. That's not news. That's people talking about news. When you think about it, yes, it's news commentary. And but shows like Frontline on PBS are amazing.
Yeah.
And so I would say definitely check out Frontline. Not only do they do deep dives and get you detailed information, they have an uncanny ability of presenting both sides of an issue without really choosing one, which is an art form that I think is lost in this day and age in media.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, I would highly second Frontline. I would even say that they do a really good job of providing historical context without bogging you down with it, because they also have a really good sense of archival footage, and it's just very well done. So
no, yeah, they're amazing in many different ways.
I was also thinking about, really quick, what you had to say about Google News, and what I didn't realize that I do, because I monitor a lot of different cities in Texas. I monitor the RGV right now and write our blog for COVID news, is that you can actually go through and pick different cities that you want to get news from. So your local doesn't just have to be San Antonio. It could be Tel Aviv, or it could be, you know, like my hometown in the Philippines, or McAllen, Texas, you know. So that's a little known feature that you use if you go on your desktop and if you're comfortable with saving stuff on your profile and stuff like that. Ben, do you want to go?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if I can join in on this PBS
Yeah.
Love Fest. I had the pleasure of meeting Judy Woodruff shortly before she went and hosted one of the Democratic presidential primary debates on campus. She spoke to us, and I just have to say, PBS is one of the most reliable, trustworthy forms of like televised media in terms of journalism that I think they have, like you said, they have a knack for presenting the news in a digestible way that is understandable, that's not overly saturated with bias, that is informed of historical context. And typically when they do offer like multiple opinions, it's usually the best opinions from that side, and that it's the most articulated form of that opinion. It's not just like unintelligible yelling, which is something I think is common for a lot of other networks. So I just love PBS.
Yeah. And as a public media person, I love that. But I also just wrapped up a fellowship with the International Women's Media Foundation, which does a lot of work of giving grants to reporters who want to go abroad and tell stories. But they're also just an amazing, they're technically an NGO, which is insane. They run like a nonprofit, but they provide resources like an NGO. And I just wrapped up a inaugural cohort that they set up, providing mentorship for young journalists and slightly more experienced journalists, women from diverse backgrounds, in the name of Gwen Ifill, who some of you may know, passed away recently and was also kind of a big person in interpreting politics to the wider audience. So I get that, and I just want to shout that out because they're an amazing, amazing organization that I've benefited from recently, and I'm actually speaking to my mentor tonight. So I just would love to kind of wrap this up with, I don't know, a couple questions. Maybe, do you guys want to answer the question about where you want to go, or is it kind of obvious? How about we'll do, you know, kind of one more thing about what international relations means to you, you know, why is it important in this day and age for you personally? And then if you'd like to share about where you want to go next, we'd love to hear that.
Sure. Well, really, you only have two choices, and I'm going to go with the extremes. But you can be, you've got solipsism, right, where it's just all about you and your reality, and the rest of the world doesn't exist. And with the global world, if not, you're going to, like I said before, end up in international relations, either reactively or proactively. What's happening right now, a pandemic, that is a global multilateral problem. The idea of addressing that unilaterally is like fighting a fire with one arm behind your back, right? It's just something it's common to me. It's common sense. So you've got environmental issues, you've got pandemics, you've got the potential of war, you've got things like I think more people need to know about Yemen and the cholera epidemic, which is basically a proxy civil war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, which the United States is involved in by making munitions for the Saudis. I think that's important to be a good voter coming up in the next couple months, right? We need to know that to make informed decisions, because not only do our decisions affect things here at home, it affects the whole world with the United States position currently in the geopolitical landscape.
I just had a crazy vision of like, can you guys imagine COVID-19 as like a Model UN room topic? Like, this is the craziest way for us to kind of like problem solve as a world, right? And so oftentimes we're in this phase where we're like, was that really a thing? Did I really read that? And it just seems like it's kind of like a crisis topic or something that they give you for fun because they, you know, they want to stir your imagination and stuff like that. But I just had that crazy vision based on what you just said, John. Paula, you want to go next?
Yeah, just adding a comment to those like kind of crisis situations they would give you in Model UN. Those were my favorite ones, honestly, because you could get to use your imagination and probably propose like unrealistic scenarios, but in a way make them work. So, and then with that, I would like to say why I'm really interested in international relations. And well, my major is international business, but it still has to do with the whole international topic. And I see it more from a point of view of values. As for me, I believe so we should all like get to know different points of view in different cultures, and with that become like a whole as a world, I would say. It might sound a lot of like peace and love and all that stuff, but I really think we're all together in this. And as someone in the previous panel had mentioned, you will never like understand the other side if you don't listen to them. So
Right.
that's my biggest point. Like, there's so much chaos, so much wars, so much bad stuff in the world right now, and yet we're still kind of fighting the other side just because we cannot be a little open-minded and listen to what they have to say. So that's my biggest point in being involved in this whole global world and being more proactive than reactive.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, John, for that quote. I'm going to use it a lot. And, yeah.
Absolutely, it is non-proprietary.
Ben, if you go ahead.
Yeah, so I think for me personally, why I'm so passionate about international relations is I come from a family of service members, Marines, Army, and law enforcement. And so public service is something I highly value. And I grew up and was formed by the late Bush years and early Obama years in the wake of the war on terror and rise of ISIS and the fall of dictators in the Middle East and North Africa with the Arab Spring. I remember watching, I think this is probably the moment that I first thought, this is something that's insane and I want to learn more about it. Was I remember the fall of Gaddafi and watching the video on the news of Gaddafi being murdered by a mob of dissidents. And it was at that point that I realized that the world is a scary place and I would like to learn more about understanding how it functions. And so that's how I got involved. And to this day, I'm a scholar. I like to identify as one. I completed undergraduate research in the field of international relations, particularly with foreign policy theory and refugees, and how refugees have become a tool for foreign policy initiatives by certain governments in determining whether or not they take refugees or send them back to their home countries. And I intend to continue on this line of research, working in the area of China, East Asia, and South Asia and the Middle East with great power politics as I go into my eventual PhD program in international relations or diplomatic history. I'm still torn between the fields of poli-sci and history, which I think a lot of you have mentioned. International relations is probably one of the most interdisciplinary fields of all of the fields. And I think, so if anyone's watching this thinking that I'd love to get involved, but I'm personally just not a very political person in the conventional sense, there's plenty of ways you can get involved. Local activism, journalism, media representation. So if you want to make movies or write TV scripts and write stories that takes place in international settings, that's still within the realm of international relations, and you'd still be doing the part that you're interested in doing. So.
Right. Well, shout out also my study abroad program, the Salzburg Academy on Media and Global Change, also known as the Salzburg Global Seminar, is doing a call for creatives right now. They want to do a program just for creatives, like folks who are artists, folks who are filmmakers, and that's something brand new. And that's kind of amazing that this is typically like a convening, let's get together kind of seminar, but it's amazing to me that they're doing that. So if anyone out there is interested in that, I'll send them the information. But thank you guys again so much for this time. I really enjoyed speaking with you. Anyone out there as well who's listening, thank you so much for tuning in.
Absolutely. That was my professor. We're in the same room.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm glad you have that support. Ben, I hope you get to go to The Hague. And I wanted to share that the one thing I wanted to answer Wayne's question, and I really want to go to Japan and the Philippines after this. That's where I'm from, and I think it's time to check in with the fam. But we're also, I'm hoping to do that as part of my honeymoon, and so trying to already kind of plan all this out. It makes me really, really wish that it's ready for us to go out there, and I wish the best for you guys in your travels as well. So, Armin?
Wow. Thank you, Jen. What a great program today, and what a great moderation by Jen Ross with Texas Public Radio and Wayne Smith with the CoStar Group. I hope you guys had some fun, but also a lot of information from these fine young people who are already leading in the armed forces and in publications and research and academia, but also who will be our future leaders out in the communities around the world. So thank you for taking part in this. We had an overwhelming response from the universities. I want to thank the university presidents who serve on our board, and also the connections we have at the universities who referred these students to us for this panel. We had other recommendations as well, so we will continue this type of format and tackle issues and discuss issues like race, discuss other issues that are topical as well. Taylor from UTSA, thank you so much. Murph with Our Lady of the Lake University. Teddy with St. Mary's University, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for your service to the country as well. Appreciate that. Micah with Alamo Colleges, thank you for tuning in. John with the Texas A&M San Antonio, Ben from Trinity, and Paula with the University of Incarnate Word, who is our program sponsor. So thank you to UIW, our board member, Julie Weber, who is working in the background and backstage, along with Helen Lutz, Samantha Scory, who is working also behind the scenes and doing all the social media stuff. So thank you all for having a vibrant discussion, a very positive, very important discussion about your interests. I learned a whole lot, and we will have this on tape in case you all want to share it with your family and your friends. Be sure to contact us if you're interested in the Young Professionals Group. Like I said, we will continue these formats. We have a program coming up on September 10th. During the day of the Big Give, we will have 10 programs in one day, including several ambassadors who have joined in, including a conversation about race relations, also learning Chinese, and maybe some tequila tasting too. We'll see how that goes. But we have a line of programming that day that will involve many aspects of what is going on around the world. So thank you again to Jan Ross with TPR. Thank you to Sarah Allred, who's our chair of the World Affairs Council Young Professionals Group, and to Wayne Smith for moderating. You all have a great week. Enjoy and be good to each other. And thanks again for tuning in. And thanks to our Facebook audience too. Y'all have a great week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And have a good week.
Thank you.